Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. First, I want to say sorry for missing last week's video. If you haven't noticed, I try to post every single Friday and I missed last week's upload. And if you don't know me personally, then you don't know that I'm a very disorganized person. So I took this last week to kind of get all my ducks in a row and plan some videos out. And I'm excited for what that looks like in the weeks to come. So definitely stay tuned for the videos that are coming. Today, we're actually going to be talking about the necessary qualities in a concealed carry inside the waistband holster. So let's get started. To clarify, I just want to say real quick that this video is not about the most amazing concealed carry holster that you could possibly find. I'm not going to be talking about all the different features that you want to look for in a perfect concealed carry holster. Today, I'm just talking about the absolute non-negotiables. And I would like to also preface this with, this is my opinion. It's also the opinion of other people that I really respect, but I'm not claiming to be the end-all be-all here. I'm just kind of presenting you guys with some things that I require out of my concealed carry holsters. So with that, let's get going. So there are 4 qualities that I look for as necessities in a concealed carry holster. And that is that it has adequate retention, and mind you, we're gonna go over each one of these things and what that actually means, but adequate retention. I want it to have an open mouth, so meaning it doesn't actually collapse when you take the gun out of it. I require that it has hard trigger coverage and that allows me adequate access to my firearm. So first thing is retention and what that actually means. What is good retention? How do I test for that? A way that I use to test for good retention, and that I think a lot of people test, is doing this and shaking your firearm inside of the holster. But one, the firearm is going to be heavier when it's loaded, so that's going to change. But also the holster is going to perform differently when it's inside your waistband versus when it's outside the waistband and you're shaking it. I would say the best way to go about testing retention is doing so with an unloaded firearm or with a blue gun, a weighted blue gun, and just going about your daily activities within your home. And I would suggest testing out your holsters before you take them out into your world of concealed carry, you know, going to the grocery store and going about your life. So there's a number of ways you can test them within your home. You can do jumping jacks, you can do burpees, you can do what's called solo jiu-jitsu drills. You can look that up on YouTube. There's a number of different ways that you can kind of test out doing jiu-jitsu things by yourself with your holster on and see how it performs when you're doing that. But if you have a sibling or significant other or somebody in your life that would be willing to wrestle with you, that's another great way to test how your holsters are going to actually perform in a situation like that. So put your holster on, make sure your gun's unloaded, or throw a blue gun in your holster and wrestle with somebody. The next thing that I require out of my concealed carry holsters is that they have an open mouth. So any Kydex holster, any full Kydex holster that you're going to purchase is going to have an open mouth. You run into this issue when you get into soft shell holsters. So when those are inside your waistband, they tend to collapse in on themselves once you draw your firearm. And in order to safely reholster your firearm, you have to actually remove the entire holster and do so off body. And that's not something that I'm willing to mess with. I want to be able to holster one-handed, and having a holster that closes in on itself doesn't allow me to do that. Next, I require that all of my concealed carry holsters have hard trigger protection. And this is for a number of reasons, mainly because I don't want to be able to access the trigger when my gun is in the holster. I do carry chambered, and I think that that is the best way to carry. And I want to have hard trigger protection because I don't want to be able to access it. Something else that I would like to mention here is that your finger is not the only thing that can pull the trigger. And I think this is something that's not universally understood amongst concealed carriers. Many things can pull our triggers. I'll actually link a story down below where a man was carrying in a belly band without hard trigger protection, and he was carrying chambered, and he had a external safety on his firearm engaged, and he felt that that was adequate protection for him. And he was wrestling with his dog. The dog managed to actually disengage the external safety and pull the trigger through the belly band. The man was fine, which is great, awesome, but I think he learned a lesson that day that I hope nobody else that's watching this video has to learn. And that's why I wanted to mention this today, is that you are not the only thing that can pull the trigger on your firearm. So your clothing can pull the trigger, your shirt can get caught up in the trigger guard as you're holstering, your drawstring can get caught up in the trigger guard. They're almost designed to do that. Not actually designed purposely for that, but they do a very good job of pulling the trigger. Also, apparently, dogs can pull triggers, children can pull triggers accidentally, unintentionally, and bad holsters can pull triggers. There are numerous stories of really worn down leather holsters that eventually fold and warp, and they can pull the trigger as you're holstering as well. The danger is mostly there as we're holstering our firearms, but if you are carrying in a holster that does not have hard trigger coverage, such as a belly band, and I'm not talking difficult to pull the trigger, I'm talking you want it to be impossible to pull the trigger because of stories such as the dog and children and all of those things that can pull the trigger other than your finger. It's not about having really great trigger finger control. It's absolutely about that, but it's about all the other things that can also pull the trigger. Lastly, I want to make sure that my holster allows me to gain consistent and good access to my firearm every single time I need to go to draw it. So this can kind of play into a number of different parts of the holster and where you put it, what you attach it to, and what level of concealment you're actually going for. So there's a difference between a desire to get deep concealment and a desire to just be able to conceal your firearm. Deep concealment is a very niche kind of situation, and if you don't know what it is, then it's probably not something that you need. Deep concealment is for non-permissive environments. Essentially, deep concealment allows you to be able to actually lift your shirt and do a little spin around, and you can't see a firearm. It's not detectable in any way. That's a different kind of concealment than I'm ever going to be talking about on this page, because I'm an average everyday concealed carrier, and deep concealment is not something that honestly applies to me. If that's something that you want to know more about, though, I would direct you towards anything that Daryl Bolke does. He's been in a number of modcasts on primary and secondary, and he talks about deep concealment and the purposes for it and how to do it best. So that's not something that I have even a base level of knowledge in. So go ahead and check him out and the modcast that he's been in. Specifically, he's been in the Realistic Carry Considerations modcast. That one would be a great one for you to check out to learn more about deep concealment. But today I'm just talking about normal concealed carry applications, and that's what I'm kind of applying all of this to. So do not try to apply this kind of video to deep concealment. That's a whole different situation. Talk about normal concealed carry stuff. So essentially what I mean when I say that I want to be able to gain consistent and proper access to my firearm every time I need to access it, I mean that I want to be able to get a firing grip on my gun out of the holster, and that doesn't necessarily mean that I want to be able to get my thumb behind, because if I have a really good grip tuck, then that's going to be difficult and not necessarily optimal. So I've really been preferring the claw grip when I go to actually draw my firearm. And so long as I can access it this way and my waistband is not inhibiting that draw, and the wing is not inhibiting that, I have plenty of space for my knuckle to get in there and get a firing grip on my gun, that's access to me. That's adequate access to me. And some Kydex holsters, some holsters in general, are not designed to allow you to do that very well, consistently. Sometimes they only have one option for where you can attach clips, and that forces you to only have one place where you can actually place the gun for ride height, and sometimes that can make you run into your actual wing. So it's just something to consider and something that I like to be aware of. And when I'm looking for a holster, I want to be able to select something that has the ability to let me adjust ride height and all those kinds of things. But the most important thing being that I can access my firearm and get a good grip out of the holster. And that's all for today's video. Thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful to you. If you feel like supporting Armed in Style, please go ahead and like this video, consider sharing it. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe and the notification bell to know when my videos are coming in the future. And I'll see you guys next week.